And the writer before us had sort of come up with the producers with this idea that it could work if it was gun litigation. And they didn't actually change the legal principles, so there were some logic issues, but we inherited the gun idea and then did a lot of research with lawyers who do these big sort of class action suits, and he explained the way that a case could be brought, and we stuck that in there. And then it turns out that there have been some cases brought with a similar argument, that that sort of a negligent distribution process would make the gun sellers liable, the gun makers liable.
It was really interesting because there was a story that I hadn't read as much about as, say, Big Tobacco, which is easier to kind of turn into a villain for a lot of stories. Right. So I really enjoyed that. Now, gambling has been part of a lot of your work, and a lot of people attribute rounders to kind of the popularity of poker nowadays. Do you think that's true? I mean, why did poker really become a passion for you?
Well, you know, we always like to say that for the real great players, poker isn't exactly gambling. Mm-hmm. It's a game of skill, and you know, in any given hand or any given little run of cards, chance plays in, and a guy could get on a hot streak and beat somebody better than him. But over time, really the better player is going to win. And we sort of we identified that early on because we'd been playing in the underground card games around New York before it was popular. And basically, with the whole poker boom, it seems like two things sort of happened. One was Hole Card Cam, because they were always televising the World Series of Poker, but it would be like sitting there watching somebody else play poker. They weren't showing what the guys had.
This is the cam that's right at the base, right?
So,
okay.
So there was the advent, like right around at the end of the 90s, like around 98, where they would show you in real time what the players had, which makes the thing a complete spectator sport. So there was that, and then there was our movie, which sort of, you know, Hollywood can often shed light on some topic that makes it romanticized and interesting to people. And the movie wasn't like a breakaway hit right when it came out, because it was like a little early. People hadn't gotten there. But over the next little while on DVD, it became a massive, massive hit. So
difficult to pitch the script initially, because before the whole poker boom, was it a risk?
Well, we didn't pitch it. You know, that was the beginning of our career, and we didn't really have contacts, and we didn't have a reputation. So we wrote the script on spec, which is what I would recommend to anybody who wants to break into Hollywood. Like, you have to show them that you can do it as well as the professionals can. That you have to show that you are a professional, basically. So we would just meet up early in the morning after I'd bartended before Brian went to his job, and we hammered the script out. And then around that time, I'd gotten a literary manager based on one of my early novels. And we showed him the script, and he said, "I think I can sell this," and he did. We sold it to Miramax.
And that was your first script sold?
The first script sale.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, it was exciting.
Now, I've heard rumors about another kind of Rounders-ish movie that you guys are going to be working on. Is that true? Or like about...
I think you're talking about...
it's not an actual sequel to Rounders, but it's a...
Well, there's two projects.
Okay.
One, there's a project that we set up with Paramount with Leonardo DiCaprio attached. You know, loosely attached until he sees a script, set in the world of online gaming and the offshore casinos. I think that's the one you're talking about. And that movie's going to be set in Costa Rica, and that's something that we're going to write shortly. We're starting the research phase of that now. But then there's also been a couple of reported things in the press or on the internet about Rounders 2 specifically. And that's something we've talked about with the actors, and everybody wants to go do it. So it's just a question of sort of landing on the exact thing and the time frame and who's going to put up the money and stuff like that. But that's sort of...
Do you have ideas boiling about an actual Rounders 2?
We basically have the take, so now it's just a question of getting it all put together in the deal making sense.
It's really exciting.
Yeah,
what is the process for you to write? I mean, do you work every day of the week? Is it a Monday to Friday thing? All hours of the day? What is your guys' schedule for writing?
Yeah, well, it's like a real job, you know. It's really fun and it's always different. But for us, we meet in the office at like 9 o'clock Monday through Friday, and we work as long as it's productive, and then we start doing phone calls and stuff like that. And then basically we work on other notes and stuff like that we might have on our own at night. We usually don't meet up on the weekends unless there's a deadline or something like that. But you know, I also write the novels, so that gives me plenty of extra stuff to work on at any free moment.
And speaking of novels, this would be a good transition. How did this come to be? Because this is something you're doing entirely on your own. There's no Brian on the cover here. Right. How did this come to be?
Well, you know, I guess there are a couple of teams that write novels, and some of them are successful. For me, screenwriting and filmmaking seems more naturally collaborative. It's always collaborative by the time you make the movie with actors and crew and everything. So it just starts earlier, and it's spoken. A lot of it's spoken in dialogue, so two of us in a room can be saying the lines and stuff like that. A novel just seems like it's just one person's point of view, really. That's the way it makes sense to me. And I'd written a couple on my own that got published before I was even writing with Brian, before we were writing the screenplays. Okay. And then I took a little time off of novel writing because we were so busy in the movie business. But then about 5 or 6 years ago, I sat down and I wrote City of the Sun, which featured Frank Baer, the private detective who operates in Indianapolis, and Where the Dead Lays, the sequel to that.
And what is this one about for the audience?
This one is about Frank Baer is basically going off in the morning to do his morning jiu-jitsu class with a Brazilian jiu-jitsu instructor, and when he walks into his jiu-jitsu school, his teacher's dead on the mat, and the cops are there, and Baer really, he can't walk away from that. He has to start investigating it. And around the same time, his old boss from the police force, who was responsible for basically running him off the force, comes to him and asks him to get involved trying to find a couple of high-end private detectives who've gone missing from a big established company in Indianapolis. So Baer gets sort of pulled into that with the promise that maybe he can get back on the police force. And as he explores it, he sort of goes into the underbelly of Indianapolis crime, which has to do with shake houses. I don't know if people know a lot about that, the P shakes.
What are those? Have I explained that for the...
Yeah, the P shake's like a sort of like a lotto-style gambling thing where people pay money to sort of pick numbers, and they do drawings, and you can win more than you put in, basically. It's a little bit like an informal lottery. And it turns out that a heavily criminalized family of a father and some sons are involved in trying to gather up and curb the P-shake business in town.
This sounds great. Would you ever think about making these into a movie? Or is this just your novel life?
Brian and I have talked about it a lot lately, and we do think we're going to do it. We're not sure which one we're going to do and exactly when, but probably in the beginning of next year we're going to set out to do a script.
And would you two work together on this?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it'd be something for us to direct. Oh. So.
Are you wanting to get more directing roles? Do you guys like directing a lot?
Yeah, it's great because it's just sort of the ultimate control of the project, and it's like this incredible tool set of a big crew, talented people, actors, and you can just use it all to sort of bring your vision to fruition.
Would you ever direct anything that you haven't personally written or haven't done any sort of writing?
Well, you know, in the beginning, we never thought we would because it seems like such a personal thing, but I sort of had the experience because I didn't write Solitary Man, and I have to say that it was really great. It was totally liberating. I had a real objectivity to the material that is hard to obtain if you wrote it yourself. So I was very free. I wasn't sort of bound by any of the struggles of writing the script or what I had in mind then. I could just look at it as a director. I could discard stuff that wasn't going to help the movie with no attachment, and I think it was helpful. So yeah, I'm sure that we would probably do some rewriting on anything that we directed, but we would love to get scripts that we thought were right and ready to be made into movies that we didn't write.
Okay. Well, we're out of time, but thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Hopefully Solitary Mans will be seen in the theaters here soon.
Yep, beginning of next year.
Oh, excellent. And Where the Dead Lay is available at the Mystery Company and bookstores all across the country. So thank you again so much for being here.
Thank you.
All right. And this is The Real Deal.